Welcome to Shotgun Story, the podcast that has conversations with indie creators about music, meaning, and the point of it all, so that you may be inspired by the journeys of other artists who are doing it for themselves, and maybe gain a little more understanding as to why it matters quite so much that you keep creating. There is so much to understand about what it means to have a career as an independent artist. And when you add children to the mix, it can become a little more complex. To help keep you creating, we're excited to bring you this 10-part series, focusing particularly on being a parent in the music industry. This project is made possible with support from the Music in Africa Foundation, the German Federal Foreign Office, Siemens Stiftung and Goethe-Institut.
Being a mother and being a musician are two different things, but you're the same person as well. So I made sure that when I was on stage, I would go and rehearse. I would know, which songs I have to sing. And when I came back home, I had to come and breastfeed my children. I breastfed all my kids until they were 2 years old.
I think that it is easier for men, like by a long shot, to keep going. And I can't see how that gets easier or gets different or gets better, Moms, they dive in to motherhood, and of course it's like hardwired to do that. But how often do you hear moms of teenagers resenting that a little bit, going, man, I gave up my career and now you're a bitch. I'm speaking way out of turn here, but you don't have to give up everything when you have kids, because I think people realize that, but they realize it when they have given everything up.
It's been kind of interesting. At some point, I thought I'd have to stop music to be a parent. And my wife's made me understand how would we make money. So the first few years, I basically stopped everything. And I was with my child. And I think it was the first tour Tutus was really alone. Tutus is my wife, right? Yeah. Shout out to T-Rex, And it was the first period I was trying to get together Lobola money when she was pregnant, so we didn't spend a lot of time together in the pregnancy. Yeah. And a lot being probably 4, if not 3 of the other months she was alone at her parents', and the rest of them I was with her at her parents' place. When Vila was born, we were together, inseparable unless I was on tour. I started going on tour with Shabaka the Ancestors because I'd quit the brothers, so it would mean lots of time at home. And then I'd be gone for 30, 40 days. Yeah. And I'd be back at home again for a long period of time, 2 months, gone again for 30, 40 days. Once Tutus's mom was she woke up, she was look at the bright side. At least you're a migrant laborer that goes into the sky and not into the ground. Oh. Yeah. My sister's version of that was, don't forget, you're just a flight attendant. The difference is that instead of saying chicken or beef, when you arrive, you have to sing.
I'm just fortunate as well that I have a huge family. I can leave my son with his grandmother at the side in Johannesburg. And then sometimes when I'm in KZN, at least there's also another grandma in KZN. Would definitely leave him there. However, it kind of kills the movement and the momentum sometimes of the band, especially with me. I'm the lead vocalist and also the leader of the band by default, So with me, having child problems will bring a humongous toll on the band. However, like I said, having family, that's what really brought sanity to me. And I'm just grateful for that. I haven't had really such a hard time because I've got family, and family understand that we have a mandate and a vision that we're pushing.
There was also this weird stuff that happens when you're a musician and you're female and you have a baby, which is firstly, before when you're pregnant, there's this like, you're like now trying to work until the final minute because you're preparing for a child coming.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, people are like, oh, who are we going to book for this gig? It's like, okay, no, why don't we book? It's like, tomorrow, oof, isn't she pregnant? Isn't she having a baby? You know, it's like this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, it's like, oof, didn't she just have a baby?
Yeah.
It's interesting because there are parallels, because if you assume that we're all going to die, you know, the only things you can really leave behind are any children you might have and whatever work you do, you know, creative works especially. So ideally those will outlast us a bit as well if they're any good. You know what I mean?
I was hoping.
Exactly.
When I was pregnant with my first child, and people sort of said to me, so what now? You know, what are you going to do? Stay at home mom, or how are you going to, you know, navigate your career? And I said, this is my time. This is my time to be the musician I've always wanted to be. I'm not going to give up on my dreams. I'm going to pursue them full time now. Because at the time I was still working also as a music teacher in a school, which was wonderful. I loved it. But I also knew that that wasn't my whole life. And if I ever had a time to be a full-time musician, it was going to be now. So in essence, I became even more full-time when my children were born.
It's been the most enriching experience, but at the same time, the most challenging. My personal circumstances around that is I am originally from the Congo, DRC. At the age of 13, there was a tribal war in the town that I was born in, Kolwezi, south of Congo. And I come from the tribe that was being evicted from the area. So me and my parents had to leave the town. So at that age, because of education, they sent me to Zambia to go finish my secondary school. So since at the age of 13, I was disconnected from my parents. And just the 13 years that I had with them was the most founding, or the most secure place of, what's the word in English I would say? It's the most secure I've felt when it comes to, you know, parental guidance and the sense of security. And even though my brother was a very loving brother and he helped me through education and grow, he was also a young man just trying to make his living in Zambia. So I never really felt the motherly or fatherly experience that I yearned for almost 7 years, that I never got to see them again since I left Congo. And I'm telling that story because when my son came in my life, having cherished my childhood, the time that I had with my parents, I could not see myself not giving him that.
The music life is not it's not a conventional one, you know, the musician's life, the working musician's life. So I always had my mates I had a friend who adopted quite young. I think he was just out of university, so he would have been mid-20s, and him and his wife adopted, and suddenly he was coming to orchestra, like a place where he would, you know, this is what he wanted to do. But like before he left, he was having this whole little internal battle going like, hey, Dad, can you come and play? Oh, you're in black. Oh, you're going to work. So, don't worry. You know, and that like broke his heart. You know, so he ended up leaving the orchestra very shortly after that. You know, like he resigned and went to go and, you know, find another, which also took up a lot of his time anyway, another profession. But I mean, you know, just, you know, so the whole thing about, I made that decision then, like, oh, I don't know if I could do that. You know, I don't know if I could be a dad that has to leave his kids all the time, you know. And then as life gets in the way, life happens while you're making other plans. And then we fell pregnant and we had Daniel, and everything changed. You know, I was like, oh, you know, so it doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to be, you know, the dad who's like always disappointing his kid. You know, you don't have to do that. It can be okay. You know, you can still be a dad and a musician.
Maybe I'm lucky. I mean, I never felt any conflict. Neither do I feel any conflict right now, in terms of career, in terms of music and parenting. And I would invite you to see it as another part of the creative journey.
So what kind of impact did having your son have on your career?
You know, obviously started singing at the age of 19, and already had a son, it wasn't very easy, because now I had to be a full-time parent, and I just started this new career, which I wasn't even sure if I was going to last or not, you know, if there was longevity here, if this was the career that I really, really wanted, because I stumbled into it whilst I was trying to make ends meet, you know, because my mother just insisted, you have to go to university. So I find myself at Devon recording I'm in Love with the DJ, and within a couple of months, I become this overnight success. Music being played on the radio, people recognizing my face, you know, going around, seeing myself on television, and it was like, oh wow, where is this whole thing leading to? But because I knew that I have to look after my son, I had to look after my mother as well, and I had to look after myself. So education became something that was very, very important to me. And thanks to my mother, who really insisted. My mother really didn't care about whether you're singing or not. She just did not care. She said, is this a career? Is this a serious work? Is this a career that you wanted, you know? So I used to go to the shows with my son. You know, I had a young lady who was very close to me called Mememe, who, when I was on stage, she would be looking after Temba. So I traveled with him everywhere because I had to be a present parent. And my mother, because she was very strict, and remember, the pregnancy was never planned. She didn't even know that I was pregnant, you know, because when I was writing my matric exams, you know, in fact, even some of my friends, they always thought, you know, when I started singing the following year, because I had Temba in 1984. And my friends were like, is this a publicity stunt? We didn't see you pregnant, you know. So I hid everything, like any other teenager, you know. So I hid the pregnancy. So very few people saw me pregnant. But then I had to make a decision of, you know, not taking my child and go and leave him with his grandparents from the father's side or dump him with his father. I thought, this is my gift from God and I have to bring him up. If I did not have food, if I slept with water, he will have to sleep with water. But if I had sushi, he will also have sushi with me.
To be honest, I actually didn't. To be honest, I think I went in a little naively. I just assumed that I would carry on as normal. And in some ways, a lot of my life has been like that. I don't like to think too far ahead. I try and stay present wherever possible because I know that the greatest joys are happening right now and the things that are going to happen in the future might not happen. So if I worry about them too much, then I'm just going to be wasting my present time. So maybe that's why I went in sort of full force. I just didn't think far enough ahead.
How do you feel that parenting has impacted your career?
Oh, okay, wow. That's like such a multifaceted but simple question. It depends on the sort of parent you want to be, you know, or also depends on the sort of career you want to have. So I guess it depends.
Yeah.
But I think the way it's affected me specifically is I've had to sort of realize that it's not that important, you know, like that gig or that audition or that show or that recording, you know, you can screw it up or whatever it is, you know, and you're going to come home and you still have to, you know, you've got your kid, you know, yeah. And they still love you despite the fact that it wasn't a resounding success. As a matter of fact, they probably think you're amazing for whatever you've done, you know. So it kind of just put things into perspective for me is that, you know, I mean, all the things that we think are important, you know, aren't really.
My career was just beginning to kind of catch on. I had just done a US tour. I was on the Putumayo compilations, and there was a lot of live gigs and Afrocentric music, meaning like Congolese fusion style of music that I was making was really becoming like a thing. So I was almost ready to actually kind of establish my work. But then I had to make the decision to not be in Joburg and come to Cape Town and be close to him. So it was really challenging in that way. But at the same time, my heart, I know I would not be a whole man if I didn't participate in his life the way I have so far.
I mean, do you feel like having kids has impacted your career at all?
Maybe. I mean, if I'm totally honest, I think there are things that I'm like more hesitant to do now. Like in the past, maybe I would have like longer touring things I'm more comfortable doing, and now like I'm bleak about it, you know. So now, like that thing of going up and down the coast for 3 weeks in December, like that I'm not super into anymore. So there's that. But I mean, that's like a really tiny thing, you know. Like it doesn't stop me from doing any of the stuff that I love about being in a band and making music, and I mean a huge credit to my wife Angie, because she gets it, you know. She like super down, and she knows like it's cool. Like what we get to do is awesome. Like I can't sugarcoat it. Like it's not a grind. It's like the best shit, you know.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna last forever. Like it's lasted for 15 years, but that's not that long.
Yeah.
You know, like you get these guys that like the rock band is like their pre-kid life.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like that, because then like 5 years after like doing the old Facebook bands breaking up post, 5 years later they realize like, you know, we really didn't have to do this. We could have kept going. You gave us this thing you love. Yeah, you're doing it with the right intention, but you might not have had to have done it, you know.
Yeah.
You just like figure your life out a little bit. So, yeah, I don't like regret having kids, if that's what you're really trying to find out.
I suppose maybe also because, and what is the word, hypothesizing here, if you were the primary caregiver, perhaps it would be different.
So, 100%. I mean, it could have been so much more complicated. For example, if Angie was in music. Okay, so how do we figure that out? You know, also would have been, I mean, no question, like for Angie to just go away for a week at a time. It's like way more, not that she loves our kids more than I love our kids, but it's just like mom stuff happens, you know. So, yeah, I mean, that's not lost on me, you know. Like, I think that it is easier for men.
You know, there's a moment where you think, no, when I become a parent, I'm going to have to stop the music. Yeah. And then maybe you even try to do that for a bit, but then you realize, actually, I can't. I've got to do the music still. And then, but then it's a question of how. And then there's challenges around that. And then you just, so if you stop being embarrassed about it, you're like, yeah, I'm a dad. This was my little girl, you know. And then you work at what's going to actually function practically. You know, maybe it's not practical to bring her to practices. So then you're working out child-minding things, play some open-air shows, then Lisa can come watch. You know, you're just finding ways to make it all work, you know.
I work in an industry where there's no maternity leave. There's no support in any way for, you know, I mean, not that I don't mean to complain. I'm sure there's many other women that go through this, millions, in their various fields, but I'm just saying. So there was no maternity leave, and there was a major pressure because I couldn't work for a period of months. And obviously every cent I made leading up was going into just trying to get together absolutely everything I could to bring her into the world on my own.
Do you think that having kids has changed your fans' perception of you?
Probably. I think so. I mean, I think that whenever somebody has an experience that is similar to yours, they get a bit closer to you. Yeah. So all the mothers out there and all the parents out there, suddenly I was in another club as well, not just like a, there was almost also a graduation. I mean, I was in my early 20s at the beginning of Fresh Take Ground. So a lot of our fans were that age group, 20, 30, 40s, whatever. But like with the parenting thing, yeah, I do feel like there was another dimension. But I also wonder if that isn't just like a natural thing that happens with the process of just getting older.
I noticed this right near the beginning, that I felt that I got more respect for being a slightly more mature woman in the industry who's also managing some very real life challenges. And I would find that the kind of responses I would get from audiences was one of much more engagement and curiosity about my life and how they could relate. Sometimes I think when people see artists on stage, there's an assumption that you're something special or different and your life is not the same as everybody else's. But as soon as they realized that I had children, there was an instant connection, making me more relatable, I think. And from that, I got much more, and a much more interactive audience, and one that I absolutely love. And so I feel that it's actually been a huge positive as being an artist with children. It definitely changes your perspective, and I think it helps others around you see that you're actually very normal.
Yeah, but the thing is, you just live through chapters. I was very single, my first band, Jedi Rollers, and, I would kind of sit, and so I was single, and I listen back at the lyrics, they're kind of satirizing the life that I was living at the time, so that's what that was about, and then the next chapter is about something else. But eventually you start writing songs about the experience of having a child. I've got a song called The Birds, which is like, it's about that thing where your child is like not even one and it can't sleep. So you're walking around, it's 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and then that the sun starts rising and it's the dawn and you've got your little daughter and you're just like trying to, and then you notice the birds. And it's got this like chorus, and birds never sing out of key. It's just things that you notice while you raising your child, and that gives you a whole lot of material and creative ideas. So it enriches the process, and when you accept it, I think the tension comes when you're like trying to pretend or you're trying to cling to that single life, which is gone, and you must accept that. I think then that sort of acceptance opens up all those doors, and then it can work. You can't. Well, you can try and live a single life, but I don't think it's the path of flow. You're going to be just short-circuiting so many things. So rather embrace parenthood and your status as a musician and a creator, and then find ways to reconcile the two.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, but I don't think it's more of a balancing act because I'm in a band. It's like we've all got tons of stuff to do. Like we've all got work stuff and family stuff and fun stuff and friends that we want to see and that, and like you just got to figure it out. Huh?
And the rest of the world live like the future's children. Yeah. The arts and music and performance world lives in a void without children. Yeah. People can call you now, want you to come now, as if a babysitter is not an issue in life. Yeah. I'm lucky I have my mom. A lot of people don't, not child-friendly gigs. While our audience gets older. So now we're thrown back to having to go back to dingy clubs and small spaces and bad sound and. Why? Because, well, our audience has children and they can't come at night, and we're not pulling the numbers that we apparently can pull. So they send us back to the beginning.
You know, like when you've got a gig, you always want to hang out afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really like, because, you know, like most people, they finish their job at 5, and then they only get to bed at 9, 10, 11, whatever, 8 if they're like me, you know. But, you know, there's a good 3 hours after you finish your work, you know. And as a muser, you finish at midnight or 1, you know, and you hang out, even if you have like one drink afterwards at the bar, you know, or just hang out just for, you know, like a short time, it's super late when you get home.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, that was the other thing, is like, actually, you know, just to tear yourself away. You know, you don't have that disengage, the time of just like the debriefing after the gig and just sitting and talking to the peeps, you know, and whatever. You're like, you got to go like, okay, actually, you know what? Tomorrow morning I've got a play date with such and such, or a birthday party. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, just a quick beer and then I'm going to run. Cheers, guys. Yeah. And that's always really hard for me. That was hard, you know. I know it sounds like a strange thing to mention, but yeah, that was weird. And the other thing is, obviously, like I mentioned earlier, putting in enough time to hone your craft, you know. I mean, as a musician or as a person, I think in general, you know, the more or the sooner you stop working on yourself or developing yourself, whether it's your trombone playing or your singing, guitaring, whatever it is, or painting, drawing, video editing, whatever it is, you know, like the less time you spend in that, or the less time you spend developing those skills, the more stagnant you get. And then I think you become a worse, for lack of a better word, person and parent, you know. So I find myself, if I don't have something, if I'm not growing in some way, if I'm not learning something new, then I will become a frustrated parent, you know, instead of being the sort of parent I'd like to be.
The biggest challenge is time, I would say. The biggest challenge is time given to my craft, as opposed to being with my family. And that never really used to worry me before. Yeah. You know, for most of my children's lives, I've been very happily gallivanting, but it's very difficult now to leave. And like, I find it very, I find it, it almost hurts. Like, I want to be with them. And in fact, this is my next part of my plan, like, that I would like to travel with them. I want them to come with. What a dream, eh?
What a dream.
What a dream. I want to make that dream come true. That when I want to do few gigs, I want them to pay me a lot, and I want to be able to go with my family.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, this is my dream. Universe, are you listening? Otherwise, the biggest challenges are internal. Yeah. You know, for me, like, the biggest challenges are my my lack of presence at times. You know, which has nothing to do with my career, which has nothing to do with music. It's just another incarnation of my escape control thing. Yeah. You know, that's the biggest challenge. You know, it's like, because parenting is also, it's full on.
That's for sure.
It's full on, and like, my natural inclination is to, like, I want to retreat. You know, I want to, like, and then I retreat using all sorts of things. So I retreat. I will use entertainment. I will use alcohol. I will use just checking out. You know, and I hate that, and that is something that I'm working on.
Challenges are real. I think the biggest one that you would probably relate to is just finding time to be creative, because where before you might have had as much time as you needed, or you could allocate a day or take off time to do things. Now you are a full-time mother, having to be available for everybody's needs, and obviously those needs change according to the age of your children. And I would find myself, one of the big challenges was having to prepare for shows, memorizing lyrics, working on accompaniments potentially for other singers, and things that required a lot of work, but finding myself doing it at sort of midnight when everyone else was asleep, and then keeping an ear open for when the first cry would happen for somebody who needed to be fed, or a bad dream, or just got woken up by something. And So the greatest challenge was, I think initially, was just being tired a lot of the time, and then having to learn how to fit my creativity into times when it wasn't necessarily my favorite time. But then, even having said that, that became actually a huge lesson to me in how I think we limit ourselves by kind of labeling ourselves as artists who have to work spontaneously. And actually, in fact, we can work quite efficiently if we get given time to do it.
We expose ourselves so much in front of people, but people don't know behind back doors how much we suffer. You know, you could give out the best show, people go crazy and they could cry, they could be rolling on the floor. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe what I just saw. And at the backstage, when you're at the backstage, you're like, oh my God, I don't have anything. What am I going to eat? How am I going to survive this month? And people are going crazy outside.
And just that support system has strengthened my parenthood, and I could never have done it alone. So from my mother, my two sisters, my sisters-in-law, my mother-in-law, my husband, and our helpers, you know, it has been amazing. And these are the people that I constantly would want to thank, because I could never have done it on my own. It would have been disaster. It would have been such disaster.
And then I've got my husband, who's a really great parent. He's in the film industry, so he can be just as not physically present. So we kind of do tag team, which has its pros and its cons.
It's just harder to support an artist, because in a general sense, when you say I'm leaving at 9 and I'm coming back at 5, and when I come back from work, all my work is left at work, and I'm here as a parent and I'm contributing in this way, and everybody has kind of clear duties and things to do, it's very easy to create a support for that person or the family or the community. But then when your lifestyle is like you are touring for 3 weeks and you come back, you need another week to recoup, and you are doing a session that demands so much of this and that, and you're working on a political content that takes you on a different journey of anger and frustration and all that stuff, and then still have to come back with that to family, the support system is different.
Do you know of any support for parents in the music industry?
Wow.
No.
No.
Not practical support.
I can't even imagine what that would look like, to be honest.
Well, the first thing that goes through my mind is, well, why isn't there? No, I don't know of anything. Is there anything?
Are there support networks for parents in the music industry?
Not at the moment.
I was like, damn.
No. I mean, that's part of the point of this, I guess.
Oh, wonderful.
Just trying to figure this out.
No, I don't know of any.
This episode was made possible by the Music in Africa Foundation, the German Federal Foreign Office, Siemens Stiftung and Goethe-Institut. The Music in Africa Foundation is a pan-African non-profit organization based in Johannesburg, South Africa, with satellite offices in East, West and Central Africa. Their mission is to support the African music sector through promoting knowledge exchange and creating opportunities and capacity for music professionals. I'm Shotgun Tori, and if you're an indie artist whose passion for what you do can inspire or fuel others, get in touch.